Yo, he shot. Hold up. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Silly Strategic. Today's video is going to be a reaction type of videos because there's been some handgun safety incidents that I've been seeing online that's trending right now. I just want to give you my input and I just want to make this like a gun safety educational type of video. I'm going to play you guys the videos and I'm going to show you guys my reaction, and I'm just going to give my input on what the hell it did wrong, which, you know, it should be pretty good. But anyways, stay tuned, tune in, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing. That is today's topic. So we're just gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna go ahead and play the first video, and we're just gonna see what happened, and then we're gonna just go ahead and kind of talk about it and just see what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this. Here you go. So the scene is a guy. It looks like he's obviously sitting in the car. He could be with somebody because I think at the end, like, he asked a question like if something happened or whatever. So I think it's two people in the car, and it looked like he has it looks like a Glock type weapon. It's hard to tell what kind of weapon it is because the video isn't the greatest quality and it's kind of dark. And it looks like it possibly could be by the shape and size. It could be like a Glock 19 or Glock 17. I'm gonna have to check out the video. Let's check out the video and then we'll go over all that stuff. So let me go ahead and press play. Yo, he shot. Hold up. He shot the gun. I guess he's obviously on live or something, and he has a gun by his face. He has a gun by his face like this, and I guess he has a camera, and I guess somehow he put his finger in the trigger and shot the gun, and the slide right back and knocked him in the face. Let's go ahead and watch the whole thing. Wow, this is crazy. I gotta see it again from the beginning. That's crazy. That's crazy. Bruh. Oh, he spit up his teeth, bro. Oh. Okay, hold up. I don't mean to laugh, but this is not funny. This is not a laughing matter. But bro, he spit up like two of his teeth. Like the whole tooths came out. The tooth, whichever one it is. Two of them came out. Like, that's crazy. Hold on, let me run it back one more time for the top. Man, that shit hurt just to watch. Yeah, he spit like two or three teeth. Golly. Alright, so let me say back. So the pistol that he used, it looked like it's like a Glock 19. It looked like it's about the size of this, about this same size. And what he did is he's there, and I guess he obviously has his finger in his trigger. That's a lot of the times why we say keep your finger off the trigger, because when your finger's on the trigger, sometimes like just something's happen with your body and your finger just kind of jerk. Once you put your finger in the trigger, it's a possibility that you just want to just go ahead and pull the trigger. So that's why a lot of the times we always say keep your finger off the trigger until you're actually ready to shoot it, because sometimes your finger might inadvertently twitch and pull the trigger back. And obviously it was loaded. He put it back and he had his finger in the trigger and he was bouncing, and I guess with the beat, his finger just kind of did its own thing, and it just came back and knocked several of his teeth out. Tooth, I keep wanting to say tooth. Man, that's crazy. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to say this. Gun safety and gun education, to me that's like very important because I'm very adamant about guns. I love guns. Right off the top, I'm gonna tell you guys, I make a lot of shorts and I make a lot of reels for YouTube and Instagrams and Facebook and stuff like that, little short, funny clips with guns and stuff like that. I want you guys to understand that every single time that I'm handling my pistol or rifle or any firearm, anytime I'm handling any firearm, the first thing I do is unload it. That's the first thing that everybody needs to put in their head. Whenever you touch a firearm, whether it's yours neighbors, whether it's a friend, whether you find it, the first thing you want to do is you want to unload that weapon. Even if the weapon isn't loaded, even if it's like this, you see the magazines right here, even if the magazine is out of it, the weapon is sitting there, whatever weapon it is, you always want to make sure that you clear it. You want to make sure that you clear it, because understand that just because you take the magazine out of the gun, that doesn't mean that the gun is cleared. That doesn't mean that the gun is safe, because it could be around in the chamber. So you always want to make sure that you clear that chamber. You always want to make sure that you physically check and see that there's no round in the chamber. Right off the top, whenever I make a video, whether it's a short or whatever type of video or whatever, I always make sure I clear the weapon. I don't know if you noticed, but even before the video started, I was trying to explain what he did. I checked the chamber. Every time, I think I did it multiple times, I actually, before I put the gun up to my face or before I put my finger in the trigger, you notice that I just cleared it every single time, because I'm just programmed to do that. Every time I'm going to mess with a gun, even though I knew I cleared the gun before the camera start, I still do it again. And I put it down, and if I pick it back up, I'm just going to check it again. It just gives me that sense of security that I know 1,000% that this weapon is cleared and is empty. Gun safety. If you guys are going to mess with firearms and you're doing any type of video and you're not actually shooting live rounds, you're not actually intending to shoot anything, you always want to make sure that all your weapons is clear. Even this weapon right here that's in the stand, if I take this out to talk about it, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I clear that chain. Make sure I clear it, and then I'm going to handle it. Anytime you handle a weapon, you always want to make sure it's clear. You always want to know the status of the weapon. You want to know if the weapon is amber. You want to know if the weapon is green. You want to know if the weapon is red. At the end of this video, I'm going to explain those weapon statuses at the end of this video. The first video, man, his first mistake is they're probably smoking, they're probably drinking. I don't know. They didn't show him smoking, they didn't show him drinking, but you know, they're just vibing to the music. So I'm not gonna, I don't know what they're doing, but the first mistake is you're in a car, you're with your homeboy, you're bumping the music, and you're playing with a firearm. You know, you don't want to handle and be playing around with a firearm when you're in that type of situation, because stuff like that happen. You kind of do things inadvertently because your brain isn't thinking. You're so focused on the camera, you're so focused on trying to be cool, you're so focused on trying to impress your homeboy that you might do something stupid with a firearm. So if you're in that type of situation where you're just vibing out and you're jamming out or whatever, and especially if there's drugs and there's alcohol involved, you shouldn't even be messing with your firearm. It shouldn't even be in the same vicinity of any drugs or alcohol. His first mistake is being around his friend in that environment in the car. They look like they're in a car and they're jamming out. That's his first mistake. If you have a firearm on you, for whatever reason you have a firearm on you and you're with people, you shouldn't be handling it and playing around with it, because I mean it's just a bad mix, because you're not focused on safety. You're not really thinking about firearm safety. You're just thinking about, you're caught up in the moment, you're jamming out, you know, you're listening to music, and then you know the whatever music you listen to, the rapper say, yeah, I bust my gun, pop pop pop, you got your gun in your hand and you like pop pop and you accidentally pull the trigger. You just get caught up in the moment. If you're in that situation, especially if you're recording yourself and you're with people, don't mess around with guns unless you know for sure that you clear the weapon. If you're going to mess around with it and you're going to be in that situation, you want to make sure that you clear your weapon. So his first mistake is being in that situation and not clearing his weapon. That's the first thing. He didn't clear the weapon. He knows he's going to be handling it for the video. You know, he's doing it for the gram. He's trying to be cool. He's trying to show off with his boys. If he's going to do that, he needs to clear his weapon. That was his first mistake. Second mistake is putting a gun up to your face, not knowing if it's loaded or cleared or not, loaded if it's unloaded or clear. You put a weapon up to your face not knowing if it's loaded or clear. That's it. That's a second mistake. You never want to put a gun anywhere. You don't want to point it at anybody. You don't want to put it up to your face. You don't want to put it up to your head. I see a lot of these guys, you know, I don't feel comfortable putting a gun to my head even though it's unloaded, so I'm not going to sit there and do what I see people do. But I see people with their gun. This is my makeshift gun. People take their gun and they're in the videos and they're playing around and they're doing all this craziness with the guns, and don't ever do that. Even though I know this gun is 1,000% unloaded, I still don't feel comfortable putting this gun to my face and pointing it at myself or pointing it at anybody. That's the second mistake, is just messing around with the gun with his face, pointing it. Even though he didn't point it at himself or his buddy, he still have the gun up to his face like that. You know, don't do that. Don't play around like that. Don't mess around like that. His third mistake is, you know, he inadvertently shot the weapon. The bullet went through. Understand, although the slide kicked back and knocked several of his tooth out, the bullet still went somewhere. So he possibly could have shot somebody. If somebody was coming up to his window, one of his boys was coming up to the window like, hey, you know, to say what's up, and that gun goes off and he shot his homeboy, you know what I'm saying? So his third mistake is not being aware, not being situationally aware of what the hell he's doing. That's his third mistake. He has a gun up to his face, finger on the trigger, pulled that trigger, shot went off, and nobody knows where the hell that bullet went. So that's his third mistake. Don't be playing around with guns like that. If you're going to be handling and messing your guns for videos or for the internet or whatever you're doing, you always want to make sure your guns are clear, no matter what kind of gun it is, whether it's a handgun, rifle, shotgun, whatever firearm you got. If you're going to be handling it, messing with it, doing videos with them, you want to make sure that they're clear, especially if you're not intended of shooting anything. Alright, man, so we're going to go on to the second video, and I saw this video, and this video, I don't know, it just looks bad right off the top. I'm not going to play the whole video. If you want to see the whole video, you can go ahead and try to look for it yourself. But I'm just going to show you the part where he actually shot the gun. Wow, when I saw this one for the first time, I was like, wow, he almost shot his homeboy. But I'm going to go ahead and play you the video. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to play the whole thing because these guys are on live. They're like on live video chatting with their friends or whatever. And of course, they're messing with guns or whatever. His homeboy, I'm going to just go ahead and play the video and then we'll just talk to it. Let's go ahead and press play. So the one guy with the weird afro, you see right there? You see how he put the gun up to his face? And he put his finger on the trigger and boom. And he shot the gun. He almost shot his homeboy. Did you see that? He almost shot his homeboy. His homeboy's head was literally right there. And he pulled the trigger. I don't know why he decided to put his finger on the trigger and pull the trigger. I guess he thought, I'm going to assume, I'm going to go ahead and play it back. I'm going to assume that he thought the gun was empty. He thought the gun was clear to empty. Because if you notice, it doesn't look like it had the magazine in it. I don't know if let me see. Yeah, see, the magazine isn't in it. The magazine is the magazine. The gun is unloaded.
Damn, everybody.
Yeah, so when he raised the gun up like this, you can see that it was just like this. The magazine looked just like this. So he thought, I guess he thought because he took the magazine out, I guess he didn't account for the one in the chamber, and he pointed the gun, and he put his finger in the trigger, and he pulled the trigger, and bow, almost shot his homeboy. And I'm gonna tell you, the step one the first thing he did wrong, first of all, is like I said, just like in the first video, when you're around your boys, when you're around your friends, and you're gonna be messing, you know, you're trying to be cool or whatever, you shouldn't be playing with handguns. You shouldn't be handling any firearms. You shouldn't be playing around with them because, like I said, you don't think, you're not thinking about safety. You're thinking about being cool. You're thinking about, you know, being flashy for the gram, showing off for the gram, stunting for the gram, you're doing it for the gram. So you're not focused on safety. So that's the first mistake, is putting yourself in a situation where there's your friends around, your buddies around, you know, there's a camera, you know, you're live, you know, you're trying to be cool. So you're not thinking about the reality and the safety of a firearm. So that's his first mistake. The second mistake is, just like in the first video, the second mistake, he's putting the gun up to his face. I don't know why these guys do that. I don't know why these guys do that. Like, I don't know why they feel it's cool to put the gun up to their hand, and I see people point the gun at themselves and, you know, point the gun at people and all this craziness. Second mistake, stop putting these firearms by your face. Stop pointing it at your friends. Don't be doing that. Firearm safety, never point a gun at anything you're not willing to destroy or shoot. Kill. Do not point your gun at anything you're not willing to destroy, shoot, or kill. The basic firearm safety rules, and these people are violating it. I mean, I know these guys look young, but still, there's no excuse. If you're going to be handling guns, you're going to be handling firearms, at least follow and understand the basic firearm safety rules. The third thing he did wrong is assuming the gun was empty and putting his finger in the trigger and pulling the trigger. That's what he did wrong. Like, you never want to do that. At least if you're going to do that, you're going to, you know, try to pull the trigger and try to be cool, make sure the gun is empty. Just because, this is what I wanted to talk about, weapon statuses. Know what status your weapon is in. First off, whenever you handle any firearm, whether it's your firearm, a friend's firearm, your wife's firearm, your brother's firearm, anytime you touch a firearm, the first thing you need to do is clear it. You want to make sure the weapon is clear. Even if somebody hands you a weapon with no magazine, if they hand you the magazine right here with the rounds, and they hand you the gun and you can see that it's empty, you still want to clear it. You still want to make sure there's not a round in the chamber. That's step number one. Anytime you handle a firearm, it doesn't matter if it's your firearm, your friend's firearm, it doesn't matter whose firearm, you want to make sure it's clear. You want to know the weapon status. Understand the weapon status. Right now, this weapon is green. Weapon is green. There's no round in the chamber. there's no magazine in it. The weapon is green. Whether the slide is open or the slide is closed, this is in green status, meaning that it's good, it's safe, it's good to go. Weapon is good, it's green. The minute I take this magazine with the rounds and I put it inside the mag well, this weapon now went from green to amber. It's in amber status. Amber status means that there's rounds in the magazine is loaded in the gun, but there's not a round in the chamber, so it's still amber. This is an amber status that a lot of military and law enforcement agencies carry their weapon in amber statuses. But I know amber status is how a lot of military and law enforcement people have to carry their weapons. Not necessarily police officers, because, you know, they got to be able to draw the weapon real quick and, you know, do what they got to do. But, and I know in the military, a lot of the times we have to carry a weapon in amber status. The weapon is in the green. The weapon is now amber. Now, the minute I rack this slide back, now this weapon is red. Bullets in the magazine, and now there's a round in the chamber. So this weapon is red right now. This is a red status. This is in a deadly status. This is ready to fire. This is ready to shoot and kill. Anytime you handle a firearm, the first thing you want to do is you want to drop the magazine, take the magazine out of it, and you want to go ahead, rack the slide back. You know, rack it a couple of times just for safe measures, just to make sure that you clear that weapon. Just because you take the magazine out of a weapon, that doesn't mean that the weapon is cleared. I'm gonna go ahead. It's amber. It's red. Just because you take the magazine out of it, that doesn't mean that the weapon is clear. The weapon is unloaded. Once the magazine comes out, it's unloaded, but there's still a round in the chamber, so the weapon is not clear. So you want to go ahead and clear that round. Now it's 100% unloaded. The weapon is clear. You want to lock it back just for safe measures, just to make sure. Understand the basic firearm safety rules, man. These are not toys. I know this one looks all cool with the nice paint job and everything, and you know it looks like a Call of Duty gun, but this isn't a video game. This is real life. These things are real deadly weapons. These things can and will kill. Understand, man. If you guys don't take anything from any of my videos ever, just understand that these are not toys. And although I make videos, you know, I make funny videos and I do little skits with these guns, understand that I always clear them every single time, no matter what. These weapons are my actual weapons that I have for self-defense, personal defense, home defense. These are my actual real weapons that I used to defend myself. So whenever these weapons are stored in the safe, these weapons are stored loaded. I keep them loaded for in case any type of emergency, self-defense, any type of home invasion type situation. I don't have to sit there and try to load it. I keep these things in a red status. I keep them loaded, locked and loaded all the time. So anytime that I'm going to do a video with them, I always make sure that I unload and clear these weapons every single time. Even if I'm carrying one of these guns, let's say I'm shooting a video real quick before I go somewhere and I have my gun in my concealed carry holster, if I take the gun out to talk about it in the video, first thing I do is I'll take the drop the magazine, unload it, make sure it's clear, unload it around. Because anytime I handle my weapons, especially my weapons, I know that I keep them loaded. So I always assume that I have a round in here. That's why I always check them. Every time I handle them, I always check it. Because I know that I keep these weapons loaded 100% of the times. So anytime I'm going to do a video, the first thing I do is unload and clear these weapons. Because I know I keep them loaded. Even if you don't have your weapons loaded, even if you don't keep them loaded, let's say you keep your weapons stored in an amber status, that's fine. If that's what you do, that's what you do. I'm not going to tell you it's right or wrong. I keep my weapons in the red status, loaded, locked and loaded at all time. Understand that even if you keep your weapons in an amber status and you just feel that you're just gonna pick up your gun and rack it to do what you gotta do, hey, if that's what you choose to do, I don't think that's the best idea, especially if you have a weapon by your bedside for, you know, protection, self-protection, home protection. I feel that you should keep it at red status, keep it locked and loaded at all times, because you never know, you might not have enough time to go ahead and rack that round. Something might happen where you not be able to rack that round. Let's say somebody kicks in your bedroom door, you don't hear them break in, they start shooting you. Let's say they shot out your left arm, and now you're not going to be able to rack a round as fast. I mean, there's ways, like especially with an optic, you could rack it off the table, you could rack it off the pants, you could rack it off the side of a bed. I understand all that, but if somebody kicks in your door, starts shooting, you grab your weapon, and then you get shot in your hand, everything's going to happen so fast, it's going to be so crazy, adrenaline's going to be pumping, you're not going to be thinking, you might point your gun thinking that it's loaded and it goes clicking. So for me, I'll just rather keep it in a red status at all times, ready to go at all times. So in case something happens, somebody kicks in the door, I get shot right away, I grab my gun, at least I can try to defend myself with one arm. So anyways, that's a whole different video. But these videos, man, like, that's why I really believe that gun education in school is something that should be a thing. We should, just like we have sex education in school, we teach people about, we teach these kids about sex and STDs and stuff like that. I think we need to have a gun education program so that way kids can at least learn the basic safety rules, the basics on handling a weapon. If you're going to be messing with a weapon, you're going to be handling a weapon, you don't put your finger in the trigger. Anytime you guys see that I do a video, you can look back at any one of my videos. Unless I'm doing dry fire practice with dummy rounds, and I make sure that there's absolutely no rounds, no real live rounds around, and there's dummy rounds around, that's the only time that you'll see me put my finger in the trigger messing with the trigger. That's the only time. Or if I'm just doing dry fire, if I'm drawing a weapon and doing like dry fire, practicing my trigger control, and I draw a presentation and I'm practicing my trigger control, then I'll go ahead and do my dry fire. So as long as I know that the weapon is clear, that's the only time I ever put my finger in the trigger. Even when I'm doing videos and I know that my gun is clear, there's absolutely no rounds in the magazine, there's absolutely no rounds in the chamber, I still have trigger discipline. Keep your finger off the trigger. If you're going to be doing all these cool guy videos for the gram, you're going to be messing with your guns, trying to be cool for your friends or whatever,
keep your fingers off the trigger.
Keep your fingers off the trigger. Even if you think the gun is unloaded and you know for a fact that you unload the gun, keep your finger off the trigger. Do not put your finger on the trigger unless you're actually trying to shoot something or shoot somebody. Keep your fingers off the triggers. If you're going to be messing around with guns, messing around for the gram, keep your finger off the trigger. Keep the fingers off the trigger. Like the guy in the car, even if he's, let's say I have my gun, it's right now it's amber. I'm not going to go ahead and rack around or whatever just because I just don't need to. Right now it's in amber status. The magazine is in there with bullets, but there's not a round in the chamber. Even though I know for a fact there's not a round in the chamber, I'm still going to keep my finger off the trigger. So if I'm doing videos and I'm going live and I'm stunting from the gram, I'm going to keep my finger off this trigger because I'm going to automatically assume, what if a round gets loaded? I know that gun is not just going to load around by itself, but keep your finger off the trigger and always assume that there's a round in the chamber. Always assume there's a round in the chamber if you're going to be messing with firearms. If you're going to be a thug and you want to be a goon and you want to make cool videos for the gram, you're doing it for your boys to show off or whatever, alright, cool, do you, boo-boo. I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad. But all I'm telling you, if you're going to be doing that stuff, be smart about it. Don't put the gun all by your face. Don't have it in your face. Don't be pointing it in your head. Don't be doing all this craziness pointing at your friend. Don't be doing that. If you're going to do that, keep your finger off the trigger. If you're going to be putting the gun up to your head, keep your finger off the trigger. If you're going to be putting the gun by your face, keep your fingers off the trigger. Do not put your fingers on the trigger unless you actually want to shoot something. Do not put your finger on the trigger. Man, that's crazy. Homeboy almost shot his friend in the second video. His head was right there. His head was literally right there and he pulled the trigger and the gun went off right next to homeboy's face. He could have shot his homeboy. He could have shot somebody standing up if there's another friend in front of him. He could have shot him. I watched the whole video in the entirety. The guy that shot the gun, he turned the camera around and he showed that he shot the dresser. There was like a mirror and he shot the mirror and it went through the mirror, and I don't know if it went through the wall or not. He just showed it real quick and then he ended the video. Firearm safety, man. Firearm safety should be definitely a topic that we talk about in schools. We should definitely talk about firearm safety just like we have sex education. We should have firearms education to teach basic firearm safety to kids so they can understand that these are not toys. If you see a firearm, if you somehow your mom and dad leave their firearm out in the dresser, they forgot to put it in the safe or whatever, at least teach them how to handle it and teach them how to keep their fingers off the trigger, how to check it, how to clear it to make sure it's I know that's a very touchy subject. I know some people are going to be like,
no, you don't want to educate kids about guns because you're just going to draw them to guns and this and that. And
I mean, that could possibly be true because I've always been attracted to guns ever since I was a child. I've had an infatuation with guns ever since I was a child. But even as a child, I learned the basic firearm safety rules. I would see them everywhere in the NRA magazines and in gun magazines. Gun safety rules, gun safety rules, gun safety rules. Keep your finger off the trigger. Don't point at anything you don't want to destroy. Know what you're shooting at. Know what's behind of it. Like the basic firearm safety rules. I just think that these are the things that we need to teach kids, so in the event that they come across a firearm, that they know, hey, this is a firearm. Oh wow, because kids are naturally curious. Kids want to pick up the gun and they're going to want to feel cool and they're going to want to touch it, and these things. Some kids are like amazed with guns. I was one of those kids, and some kids are going to be petrified of it. They ain't going to want to touch it. But in case you have that kid who is curious about guns, You should teach your kids about your firearms and tell them not to touch it anyways, regardless. But you also, when they reach a certain age, you want to teach them certain basic, like how to load it, how to unload it, how to check it, how to clear it. You want to teach them how to do that, so that way in the event that they do find a way to get their hands on your guns, you know, kids are not stupid. Kids are kids are pretty smart. So let's say a kid do figure out a way how to get into your safe. However, I don't know, it shouldn't be that easy, but let's just say a kid finds a way to get into your safe. He knows how to, oh man, okay, this is empty. Let me go ahead and pull this back. Okay, there's no bullets in there. Let me check again. Let me double check. And just teach them basic safety rules and teach them that never point the gun at something that you don't want to shoot. I know that's a scary thing to think of, especially as a parent. You're thinking of your kids messing with your guns and stuff. I know it's a real scary thing, but honestly, I think it will benefit your kids if you have guns in the house, that you show them. So that way you take that curiosity out of their head. If you show them that, you know, these things are scary and they could be deadly, but you show them that, you know, you're the one that control it. Guns don't just shoot themselves, or they don't just go bang by themselves. You have to pull that trigger to go bang. I think if you teach your kids that basic safety firearm rules, in the event that somehow they get into your guns, or let's say not even your home. This is another thing. It just came to me right now. Just because your guns are locked away in a safe and you keep your responsible parent, you're a responsible adult, and you keep your guns locked up away from your kids, and there's no way your kids can get into your safe, just because you're like that, that doesn't mean that Tommy and Jimmy's friend next door, or, you know, from school, that don't mean that their parents do the same thing. Their parents might just be like, screw it, and have guns all over the house. And you don't know that. You know, let's say Timmy's friend's dad just leaves his gun in a drawer that's not locked, and they go over there, and Timmy's friend is like, hey Timmy, you want to see something cool? And they go into their dad's drawer, take his firearm, and now they're playing with it. If you teach your kids firearm safety, that let's say this kid just takes a gun out, Timmy can be like, hey, don't be playing with that. I guarantee you, if you teach your kids the seriousness of firearms and how dangerous they are, and you teach them the firearm safety rules, I guarantee you that kid is 9 times out of 10 going to tell that other kid, all right, man, we shouldn't be playing around with these things. These are not toys. You know, he's going to feel uncomfortable because you told him these are not toys. You shouldn't be playing around with these. If you know somebody is playing around with guns, notify an adult, blah, 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 he's going to feel uncomfortable seeing his friend play with his dad gun. And he's going to tell him, hey, man, put it away, man. It's not cool. And that could possibly prevent that kid shooting himself, or shooting a sibling, or shooting somebody in an accident, because you teach your kids firearm safety. People think that it's taboo to teach your kids how to handle guns and how to, you know, manipulate them and how to work them and stuff like that. But I think that you can possibly prevent an accidental shooting. That's all I got for today, man. I'm not trying to make this video too long. I know I kept rambling about gun safety, but I'm real passionate about gun safety. I always check all my weapons before I make a video. Whenever you see me do a little shorts and I mess around with my gun or whatever, I promise you it's not loaded. There's not one in the chamber. I always clear my guns before I mess around with them. I always double check, I always triple check, and I always keep my finger off the trigger. Even though I know the gun is 100% empty, the gun is a complete green status, I still keep my finger off the trigger, because it's just drilled into my soul to keep my finger off the trigger. And this is what you guys need to teach your spouse and your kids. Keep your fingers off the trigger and treat every gun as if it's loaded. Never point at anything that you're not willing to kill or destroy. Always know what's behind your target. Like, these are simple basic firearms rules. Alec Baldwin. Like, simple basic firearm rules, we wouldn't be having these situations and these incidents that we've been talking about today. But anyways, man, thank you guys for tuning in. I don't want to drag this on much longer. Make sure that you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Subscribe. Remember, it doesn't cost you a thing. It costs you $0.00 to hit the subscribe button, man. So until the next video, remember, be greater than you were yesterday. Peace.